I'll admit it. I can admit my mistakes, and I've put this off for long enough because everybody says you should never run Home Assistant on a Raspberry Pi with a micro SD card.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
But here's the thing. This little Raspberry Pi has been faithfully running my smart home for over 3 years now. With over 300 devices in my home, all creating telemetry all day long, this tiny little board that I paid $75 for back in 2022 has absolutely performed like a champ. It's like $1.50 a month. But lately though, it has been slowing down a little bit. Maybe the SD card is starting to wear out, or maybe it's just had enough of me. And then last night when it rebooted itself when I wasn't home, I decided, okay, I'm gonna do what I've been putting off for a while, and that's migrating everything over to this, the dedicated Home Assistant Green server. So let's see if I can manage to pull off this upgrade without fucking everything up. Hey, this is Doug from High Tech Life, here to help you save a little bit of your time and your money. So if you're into that sort of thing, hit like and subscribe down below. If you read a lot of online articles and forums about building a home assistant system, you'll very quickly bump into a recurring thread of discussion that says things like, you need to run it in a Docker container, or you should run it on Kubernetes. You should build a Proxmox server because then you can run a Frigate and a Node-RED server, or you should run it on your NAS server. And here's the thing. If you already have one of those things, then okay, sure, maybe. But if you don't, and more importantly, if none of those names are already familiar to you, I'm going to make a bold argument here. Don't. A long time ago, these little memory chips, they were designed for cameras, where a bunch of data is written in one big burst when you take a photo, and then maybe read back a few times, and that's probably it. So the circuitry was manufactured with that amount of use in mind. But computer applications behave differently. They kind of had this constant stream of reads and writes, and early SD cards had very limited capability for what was called write endurance. But 2010 was a while ago. The world has actually evolved since then. But some of these old adages keep coming around, like your old aunt's chain emails forwards from 2007. Application class A1 and A2 class cards are explicitly designed to try and handle the needs of application use cases better. You can look for the little A1 or A2 logo physically on the card itself. And I don't want to get in all the technical details here on what's changed, like advanced wear leveling, SLC caches, and whatnot, but the world is not the same in 2025 that it was in 2010. So if you want to run a Raspberry Pi to build a Home Assistant deployment, I think you'll be okay. Now, don't cheap out on your card. Buy the most expensive 32GB card or greater that you can from a known reputable brand, like SanDisk or Kingston or someone like that. But like I said, I've gotten 3 years out of this purchase. And this isn't actually just some one-off that I got lucky at. I've got 3 more of these deployed at various family members' homes as well, and they're all doing fine so far. Now, I'm probably going to get flamed in the comments down below from people who had a Home Assistant system built this way that failed. Somebody's probably typing that comment right now as you're watching this. But some of you out there, do me a favor. If you've been running Home Assistant for a while on a Raspberry Pi system and you've not hit any major problems, please put that in a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you, and more importantly, it'd be really good for others to hear that, yes, this actually does work fine for a lot of folks. Now, if you want to build a Raspberry Pi system, I'll put links down below for my recommended hardware configuration for that, but that's not what we're here for today. Today we're going to upgrade, so let's unbox this. The Home Assistant Green is a custom-built server designed specifically by the people behind the Home Assistant project. So it's engineered to be the best hardware design at a reasonable price point. You can get one today for about $159 on Amazon, and I'll put a link for this in the notes down below. Now, this is not a paid or sponsored review. I bought this with my own hard-earned money, so the Home Assistant folks have not had any input into this review. And so while it's got very good hardware overall, for the storage here, they've included a built-in 32GB eMMC flash module, which is soldered right onto the motherboard. This is the same kind of storage you'd find in something like a Chromebook laptop or maybe an Android phone. It hits a nice middle ground between the SD card and just an expensive, full-blown, proper computer hard drive. So it's a great option and should provide for even greater reliability and storage. Now, the one thing I am a bit disappointed about in this hardware is, compared to my Raspberry Pi, is that this does not contain a Bluetooth chip. My Raspberry Pi had that, and the very first day I booted up Home Assistant on it, it automatically found some Bluetooth devices in my house, which was great. But this one doesn't have that. So I'll have to use one of the USB ports on the back and get a Bluetooth dongle to... It does not contain a built-in Bluetooth chip. My Raspberry Pi had that, and the very first day I booted it, it automatically found some Bluetooth devices in my house, which was great. But this one doesn't have that. So I'll have to use one of these two USB ports on the back and get a Bluetooth dongle to put in there to control some of my Bluetooth devices. And that's a problem if I also want to use a Zigbee and a Z-Wave dongle for those as well, because I have those devices in my home as well. So if there's one bit of feedback I might have for the Home Assistant team if they're watching this, is for a version 2 of this hardware, it'd be great to get onboard Bluetooth hardware, or for USB ports, either one would work. All right, so let's get on with the upgrade. We're doing this live, real time, no scripts, no safety nets. So let's roll the dice and see how this works out. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to want to do here is take some backups of our existing Home Assistant system. I'm already logged in, I'm at the settings menu here, and if you go into the system area here, you should see a capability called backups. Now, if you're not already using this service, this is great because you can schedule this to do automatic backups. I have it taking backups every week, but then what I also do is anytime I do a version upgrade on this, I just manually download a backup and then do the version upgrade. And then if something goes wrong, I've got a backup plan for that that's as recent as a few minutes before I started the process. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and create a backup. I'm just going to use my automatic settings for this, and this will run away. And then I'm going to go and create this backup and then download it to the local hard drive here before we attempt to start this hardware upgrade. Okay, so the backup is now completed. And what I can do is I can go into the list of backups here, and I can just go ahead and say I'm going to download that. And then that's going to go and download it to my downloads folder on my hard drive. So now if something goes completely wrong, I've got a backup as of just a couple of minutes ago, and I can try to roll back and work through whatever problem might come up. But the other thing that I kind of need to go and take a look at, and I don't know if this is going to be necessary or not, so I'm kind of learning things here, is there's a backup configuration for the Zigbee radio as well. So as I understand it, the Zigbee controller and then all your devices, they kind of pair with each other. So if I take the Home Assistant and move it over to another system, is that Zigbee configuration going to come with it, or do I bring it separately? Usually I see this when your Zigbee radio, the little USB dongle, stops working, and then you're just going to go and you're going to do a replacement on that, because then you can kind of repair all of the devices to that and not have to go to every single door and window sensor and start your repairing process. So if I go in and just say I'm going to download a backup, just to be extra careful, now I see that that is in my downloads folder as well. So I can go through and just say, all right, I've got my automatic backup here from the full Home Assistant deployment. It's about 200 megabytes. And then I've got this Zigbee ZHA backup as well. And now I should be ready to go to power on the new node and then restore the backup to it. So let's see how that goes. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shut this down cleanly, just to be good at that, just in case something goes wrong. And now I should just be able to go and change my wiring here, bring up the new Home Assistant and import this backup. All right, got my backups. Now it should just be as simple as unplugging the power, unplugging the network, unplugging my Zigbee and my Z-Wave dongles, and then plugging in the Home Assistant unit, network cable, Zigbee, USB, Z-Wave, and then power. Fingers crossed. Let's see how it goes. Okay, So now the first thing that's going to be a little bit different is my implementation. I had this on a fixed IP address here in my home. That's done by my broadband router, so that has nothing to do with Home Assistant. But what I'm going to have to do now to get logged into this is I'm going to have to use the standard Home Assistant, the port on this, the :8123. So when I hit this, I get to the installation screen here. So the device is kind of wearing away. I can see the little light blinking on the device itself. It's doing a lot of the initial software installation and setups. And then once this is completed, we'll continue on and work on getting our backup restored into this device.
A few moments later.
Okay, the base setup has finished, and now you see we have a few options here. You can create a new smart home, or you can upload a backup, or you can actually go to Home Assistant's cloud service to restore a backup. If you're not familiar with that, it's a couple of dollars a month, but it gives you an easy remote access solution. And now recently they added in the ability for you to store a backup of your installation offsite. I think this is a great service. I think it is well worth the money. I pay for it. I pay for it across all of the instances that I run because I think it's that valuable. But what I want to do here is I want to upload a backup of my system, and I'm going to go ahead and select the backup. And then it's asking me everything that I want to go ahead and install and restore. So I'm just going to select all the checkboxes here that I can. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't want to restore everything onto here. So we're going to go ahead and just hit restore backup. It's saying it may be able to take up to 45 minutes for that. So we'll see how long that actually goes. But here we go. Fingers crossed.
One eternity later.
Okay, it's done already. It's rebooted. It's come back into the login screen here. Definitely did not take 45 minutes. It probably took maybe about 10 overall. So here we go. Fingers crossed. And there we go. I've got my main page. I've got all my automations. I've got all my devices in here, 250 automations. Make sure all my devices are in here. 307 devices, and everything seems to be going mostly okay so far with the upgrade here. So I'm gonna let this sit for a little bit, and we'll report back on how it's gone. Okay, but just been poking around in here a little bit, and I did notice something, and this is why I'm glad I did what I did. So if I look into here, the home repairs, there's a problem right now with blink cameras, but I have a Zigbee error here indicating that the network has changed. And so this is coming up and saying, hey, things don't look the same as they did before, so do you want to go and restore a backup or keep the new settings on here? I'm gonna go test to see if my Zigbee devices are reporting states in. And if they are reporting states in, I might keep the new settings, or I may go to restore this backup. Okay, so I was looking around in here a little bit more, and I did find out that as I looked at some errors, the blink errors, they were already here. Blink's having some problems lately, but there is a Zigbee error in here that's indicating that the network settings have changed. Now, this is the same Zigbee controller I had on my other system, and I just plugged into this one, so I'm glad I took the backup. And if I go and I look at my integrations here for the Zigbee items, it says it failed to set up. So I'm going to go ahead and try to restore that Zigbee backup that I took and keep my fingers crossed that this actually works in terms of restoring all the communications and connectivity. So a little bit of a bump in the road here on this. I would have thought that taking the overall system backup would have brought all of that Zigbee data along. It would have been something where the issue is repaired. Okay, I didn't point it to a backup file, so let's take a look here and look into... Okay, Not quite sure what ended up getting fixed there. So it threw an error message. I predicted that might be a possibility in advance. I went and made a separate Zigbee configuration backup before I started this whole process, in addition to the full Home Assistant backup. I was ready to go in here and say, sure, let's just go ahead and restore that one, and chose the option to restore. And now everything seems to be working okay. So I'm going to check a few more devices and see how things are working here. Well, that was about as painless as I probably could have hoped it could be. There was this little bit of, something with the Zigbee at the end, which I had a backup ready, but it didn't actually seem like it needed it, so it just sort of figured it out, so that's great. I have since tested some of the lights with Zigbee, and everything seems to be working fine, so we're good there. And yeah, the process was pretty straightforward. You take the backup, you download it locally, you plug in the new hardware, you go to the browser URL, you supply the backup file, wait a little bit while it's going to do the restores. Maybe if there's some radio challenges, you'd sort of go to those radio restores like the Zigbee, or maybe there's a Z-Wave equivalent on that. But yeah, other than that, it seems to be working fine. I've tested some of the Zigbee lights around my office here, and they're all reporting correctly. And I've used the mobile app, and that's working as well. So huge thanks to the Home Assistant team and all the development work they put into this to just make this stuff really, really easy. I will have to go and buy a little Bluetooth USB dongle and hang that off here somewhere, because like I said, this hardware doesn't have the Bluetooth in it. So I found a really good one, very, very compatible. I'll provide a link for that down below, right below the link for the Green itself, if you're gonna go and maybe purchase that. But yeah, we'll see how it goes, and we'll report back on that. And if you like this video and you want to subscribe, I'm going to be doing a bunch more things on Home Assistant and AI and all sorts of home automation topics. So be sure to like and subscribe, and then we'll see you next time.